everybody. Yes, my family's been at St. James since it started many years ago and have many fond memories, and I still love being a member of this parish. And a couple of things I remember from St. James School is, of course, Sister Loyola and the beautiful children's choirs that we had singing in four-part harmony for many of the church events, and also Mr. Leo Kale, who would come on Fridays. He had the Kale School of Dance and taught us dance at each class, and then we would have a recital at the end. And our fourth grade song that we danced to was while strolling through the park one day in the merry, merry month of May. That's my memory.
Appreciated the fact that I was able to coach softball and volleyball here at St. James for many years. We had a lot of winning teams. The kids were fantastic. I just can't say enough about those kids. And I remember also going to Mass every day, and it was all in Latin, and we had to learn how to sing in Latin, which we didn't know what we were singing, but we knew the words. And it was Sister Loyola. I guess one of my favorite teachers was Sister Marilee, who was a young nun, and she was beautiful. And she was so sweet. And we had her in third grade and then again in fifth grade. And I remember her and a Sister John Birchman's, who also was a fourth grade teacher. And to this day, most of the kids that were in my class, they have been just close friends to this day. All the memories at St. James School have been very, very special. From pictures of my mother and my mother-in-law who went here to St. James, especially with the moments of 6 children that went to school here and a few of the grandchildren. All the memories at St. James School have been very, very special.
Hello. I graduated, I believe, in 1950. It was kind of fun going through all the pictures. There were 35, and I know we started out with 60. I could name most of them. But one of my favorite memories was my third and fifth grade teacher, who was Sister Marilee. And I later found out it's Sister Marilee Ketterhagen, the name she uses now. So enjoyed her as a teacher. She was very she was in charge of cleaning around the altar, and I think I volunteered or chose me and another girl, Joni Jeminder. And so we really got to know her that way too. And then I kept in touch with her through Christmas cards, and she would write a big letter and a personal note, and it was a great association. That and the kids walking to and from school, I think, my greatest memories.
So Sister Madeline taught fourth grade, but she also taught Latin to the boys to be servers. And I had 2 younger brothers, Dennis and Gary. And so Sister Madeline was kind enough to let me sit in the back of the room. The boys got to serve. And of course, I didn't. But I'm grateful that today, girls can serve today and say their prayers in English. Hot lunch. First early grades, we did not have hot lunch. We had our little lunch buckets. And somewhere along the line, I think maybe 3rd or 4th grade, they began the hot lunch program. And Jessie Ponte was sort of the head of the program. Mrs. Demerhausen was the cook. It was mom volunteers to help the program. Every class had their table, and the sisters and teachers would walk around to make sure you ate all your food. And I think it was like maybe $1 a week, $1.25. Some of the favorite foods were mac and cheese on Fridays. And then sometimes it would be tomato soup and tuna salad sandwiches, especially during Lent. There's hamburger and gravy over mashed potatoes. Talk to anybody who ever ate at the hot lunch program. They'll talk about the hamburger and gravy over mashed potatoes. But I think of all those ladies who kept that program going so that we could have good, nutritious hot meals. Mrs. Coyne and my mother were Brownie leaders. I do remember one time, my brothers were Cub Scouts. And Leo Lay, I remember, was involved in that program. And I remember one time my dad played Santa Claus for the Cub Scouts at one of their parties. Every grade participated in the dance programs. We had once a week. Mr. Kale would come and we would learn our steps and that. And he would just glide across the floor. He was an excellent dancer. He was light on his feet. At the end of the year, there was a big program. The classes would perform on the stage with their dances and that. And then the 8th grade, though, was different. We would do plays, and the sisters would direct us, and we all had our little parts. And the parents all came. It was a very big, special celebration of the end of school. And
We had confessionals, obviously, because we were in the Catholic Church. As a class, we would go in, and more often than not, we would have Monsignor Kelser. You had to really speak up loud. And I recall one time when he actually came out of the vestibule where he is and looked at our whole class in church and said, "I want you all to speak up really loud because I cannot hear you well." When you went into that confessional and came back out, I do believe that the whole class knew all of your venial sins. So it made no difference whether he knew or not, because the whole class also knew about those little venial sins. Say somewhere around the 5th and 6th grade, I believe there was a nun, Sister Waldbridge was a name I remember, and we liked her very, very well. Usually your next year you went on to a different nun for teacher, but we were lucky because I believe Sister Waldbridge actually taught us 2 years in a row, which was really nice.
Well, you have to start at the end of 7th grade year rather than the beginning of 8th grade, because we got to do something that every grade school kid dreams about. We literally got to tear our school apart. The sisters weren't going to pay anybody to take it apart when they could have students tear it apart. And one event I remember out of that specifically, and I think it was with Polly Davenport and Charlie Engelhardt, we had an old upright piano on 2nd floor, and there was a fire escape that went down the outside of the building. And the nuns told us to get rid of the piano, and we pushed it down the fire escape.
I have fond memories of us going from here up to the synagogue, where they welcomed us to carry out our classes while the school was literally being built. I lived right across the street from this school, so I watched all the construction going on, but the real highlight as part of the education was that tremendous welcome from those people there, and sharing their faith with us had quite an impact on me and stuck as a powerful memory.
And the Rabbi Max Lipschitz.
Yes.
And that was a little chuckle at first. But
Uh-huh.
and they had 5 classrooms they could offer us. 4 we used for students, and 1 was for the faculty, for the nuns. And we went half days. I forget which grades went in the morning and which grades went in the afternoon. We would meet here at school at St. James, and then we would walk up to the synagogue together.
We were morning. The 8th grade was in the morning, and we had the afternoons off.
And I do remember being afternoons because I went fishing. We lived on Winker Drive, and I went fishing every afternoon in Murphy's Creek. And they said, you can be out there as long as you don't cause any kind of disturbance.
I think one of the remarkable things is this was pre-Vatican II. This was before there was anything about ecumenism, anything like that. And it was at a time when supposedly Catholics and Jewish people didn't get along together. But this whole neighborhood got along together. They were so welcoming to us. Remember George, the janitor?
Yes.
The African-American janitor?
We thought he should be Pope.
Well, speaking of Pope, you remember that was during the fall was when Pope Pius XII died.
Yeah.
So he would go out and he would buy all the magazines and bring them for the nuns.
One of the things I remember very much is when a truck would arrive, a semi would pull up, or a big truck, and Sister Philothea would say, okay, 8th grade boys, you go unload that, take those desks to whatever room they belong, and take the old desk out.
There was a deal she struck with us that if you came and volunteered to help in the afternoon when we weren't having class, you didn't have to do your homework. She got a lot of free labor out of us.
It was several years that I was an altar boy serving at a wedding for a neighbor. We stood there and we stood there and we stood there, and of course I'm like this, as straight up as I can be, and I went straight down, hit the altar, was out cold. And Sheriff Franz Haas came up front and helped me into the sacristy and gave me some water, and everything was fine.
One date that I remember distinctly was Friday, February 13th. The 8th grade boys were challenging the 7th grade boys to King of the Mountain on the snow pile at the ice rink, and Dave Schwegler, a big 7th grader, fell on Donnie Spink, who was a small 8th grader, compound fracture of the leg.
Yeah.
And instead of calling an ambulance, the nuns took him to the St. Mary's in the back seat of a Volkswagen.
Yes, and a number of the boys were asked, we just chimed in and said, okay, let's carry him out to that car. And we all picked him up, but I think it was 3 on each side. Could have made it much worse.
Yeah, it was Friday the 13th. When you talk about you fainting, at graduation, Stevie Lovacek and I were the two shortest kids in class. So we led the graduation procession, and we went up. The first thing we did was go on the altar, and Stevie was kind of a card. He liked to joke around. And we're standing there, and he kind of starts moving around a little bit, and all of a sudden he did what you did. He just went smack. Got a bloody nose on the altar.
Sure.
That's how we started graduation.
Yeah, the back playground was the park, and your house was right next door.
Yes, it was.
When we played softball,
And
if you could lift the fly ball to left, you could get that window in your attic.
And that's why they put that chicken wire all the way up on top of the rest of the fence.
And that was the big goal.
Yeah.
And that park at the time they would flood it in the winter, and it was a skating rink. And we would skate back there, and then in the spring and fall, there was a track back there, and we would have bicycle races.
Yes, sir.
And going around and around and around.
For a couple hours, and we would switch bikes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And the dust would fly as we went around that track.
I am so grateful for not just the education we got at St. James. I thought we had wonderful teachers all the way along, and wonderful classmates. It was just a great experience going to St. James.
Excellent education. I particularly remember Sister Wahlberg teaching us how to diagram sentences. And I've never forgotten the details.
I thought I was well prepared for high school.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
me
much
too.
so.
Do you remember me winning a spelling bee in 6th grade?
Sister Charles.
Yep.
Yeah.
I spelled ambulance because I remember that word. And I got a St. Christopher medal for it.
Sister Charles was one of my favorites because I think her two favorite subjects were my two favorites, and that was music and math. We did a lot of singing in her class.
Yeah.
And she'd have little talent shows where kids could get up and sing.
Yes, and when she was teaching division, that was challenging to me. I used to go home and cry. Today, even now, I'm tutoring in math.
During our 8th grade year, Father Schuring was celebrating his silver jubilee as a priest. One of the nuns wrote a parody on another song that the 8th grade sang for him at his celebration.
Louis, I've been thinking what a grand world it would be if each day throughout the new year we could enjoy your jubilee.
Oh, bravo! You're a better singer than you were a drummer.
Oh yes. Denny and I started in drums together. He did really well with it. I never got past the pad. And I think what's really cool is having McKinley Performing Arts Center.
Yes, isn't it?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
That's
bet.
really-
What an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Thank you.